Chapter 3, Mature and Responsible. Marvin woke up early, got dressed, brushed his teeth, and made his bed. He had a job to do. The key was in his pocket. He was already downstairs eating breakfast when his mother knocked on his bedroom door and said,
"Marvin, time to get up."
His father smiled at him across the kitchen table. "I'm very proud of you, Marvin," he said. You seem to be taking your job very seriously." Marvin nodded, but he knew it was not yet time to feel proud. Wait 7 days. If he didn't lose the key, if Mrs. North's house didn't burn down, if Waldo wasn't dead, then he'd be proud. He finished eating, rinsed the dishes, and put them in the dishwasher.
"Oh, here you are,"
said his mother, coming into the kitchen.
"What would you like for breakfast?"
The whole family stood by the door as Marvin left for work. Marvin had one brother and one sister. Jacob was 11. Lindsay was 4. $25? All right, Mar, said Jacob. Marvin slapped his big brother's hand. It was odd. Marvin had always looked up to Jacob. He wanted to be just like him, but Jacob never had a job.
"I'm going to miss you, Marvin,"
said Lindsay.
"I'm not moving away,"
Marvin told her.
"I'll be home after school, just like every other day." "I'll still miss you,"
said Lindsay.
"I miss you every day." "I'll miss you too,"
said Marvin. He walked out the door. There was a fence around the Redpost house. The fence was all white except for one red post. Marvin tapped the family post for luck, then rode his bike to Mrs. North's. He could hear Waldo whining or singing as he took the key out of his pocket.
"Hi, Waldo,"
he said through the door. He unlocked the door, then carefully opened it so the dog wouldn't run out. Waldo was sitting on the other side of the door. His big tail swept back and forth.
"How you doing, Whiskerface?"
said Marvin. He petted the old dog. Waldo didn't want Marvin to stop petting him. Every time Marvin stopped, Waldo whined and nuzzled Marvin for more.
"Oh, Waldo,"
said Marvin. He rubbed Waldo's head and scratched him behind the ears.
"You want to go for a walk?"
He got Waldo's leash and the pooper scooper, and they walked around the block. It was only a little gross using the pooper scooper. Marvin didn't let it bother him. It was his job. He was mature and responsible. When they got back, he checked Waldo's bowls. Waldo still had plenty of food and water. Before leaving, Marvin made sure the key was in his pocket. Waldo whined. Marvin petted him.
"I've got to go now, Waldo,"
he said. Waldo nuzzled him. Marvin petted him some more.
"I'll be back right after school,"
he promised. Waldo lifted his big paw and put it on Marvin's arm.
"Okay, just a little longer,"
said Marvin. Waldo rolled over and Marvin rubbed his tummy. Chapter 4, The Substitute.
Oh. "You're alone in her house?"
Stuart exclaimed. Marvin nodded.
"Oh man, what'd you do?"
asked Nick. Marvin shrugged. They were out on the playground. School hadn't started yet.
"Let me see the key,"
said Stuart.
"Did you look in her closet?"
asked Nick.
"No,"
said Marvin. Why would he look in her closet?
"How about her refrigerator?"
asked Nick.
"Did you at least look in her refrigerator?" "Let me see the key,"
Stuart said again.
"How about her bathroom?"
asked Nick.
"I don't remember,"
said Marvin.
"You don't remember if you saw her bathroom?"
asked Nick.
"Let me see the key,"
said Stuart. Marvin fished the key out of his pocket. Stuart took it from him.
"Wow,"
he said. Then he handed it to Nick.
"Hey, everybody!"
Nick shouted.
"I have the key to Mrs. North's house."
kids came running from all directions.
Marvin was alone in her house,
said Nick as he gave the key to Kenny.
Take a look in the closet?
Asked Clarence.
What for?
Asked Marvin.
To see her clothes.
Nick and Clarence answered together. Did you turn on her television? Asked Melanie. Marvin couldn't tell who had the key anymore. It was being passed around.
Did you use her bathroom?
Asked Casey.
He doesn't even remember if he saw her bathroom,
said Nick.
What if you were alone in her house?
Asked Casey.
And you had to go to the bathroom real bad. What would you do? I'd use her bathroom,
said Marvin. Everybody laughed.
She didn't say I couldn't,
said Marvin. They laughed even harder. The bell rang. Everyone started to class.
Wait,
called Marvin.
Where's...
Here, Marvin, said Patsy Gatsby behind him. She gave him the key. As he walked into class, he heard Melanie announce, Marvin's going to use the bathroom in Mrs. North's house. Several kids laughed. Who's Marvin? Asked the substitute teacher standing at the front of the room. Melanie and Warren pointed at Marvin as he made his way to the desk. He sat down. The teacher stared at Marvin a long time. I don't appreciate that kind of talk, Marvin, she said. Marvin didn't know why she was picking on him. It was Melanie who said it. Her name was Miss Hillway. She wrote it on the board. I'll be your teacher for a week, she said, so let's all try to get off to a good start. That includes you, Marvin. Patsy Gatsby sneezed. Bless you, said Miss Hillway.
Thank you,
Patsy said shyly, wiping her nose on her sleeve. Nick leaned back in his chair, took a great big breath, then sneezed as loud as he could.
That's you!
Miss Hillway smiled at Nick. Bless you, she said. Casey Happleton sat next to Marvin. She had a ponytail that stuck out of the side of her head, not the back. Casey held her nose and said, Achoo! Her sideways ponytail bounced up and down. Miss Hillway didn't bless her. Stuart sneezed. Travis sneezed.
Sneeze, Marvin,
whispered Casey.
Why? It's funny,
said Casey.
No, it isn't,
said Marvin. It was silly. No wonder Mrs. North asked me to take care of Waldo, he thought.
You think you're so great,
whispered Casey.
Just because you went to that bathroom in Mrs. North's house.
Gina sneezed. Heather sneezed. My, there must be a terrible cold going around, said Miss Hillway. Everyone, except Marvin, laughed. Kenny sneezed. Then Miss Hillway sneezed. A whole bunch of kids blessed her. Okay, that's enough, Miss Hillway said. I hope we all got our sneezes out. Now let's get back to work. Clarence sneezed. Miss Hillway didn't smile. I'm serious now. I don't want to hear another sneeze, she warned.
But what if you really have to?
Asked Melanie.
You can't punish someone for sneezing,
said Nick.
It's dangerous to hold back a sneeze,
said Stuart.
My dad's a doctor. He knows. It could explode out your ears, said
Casey.
You could die.
Miss Hillway raised her eyebrows. Marvin felt a tickle in his nose. It was a small tickle at first, but it slowly grew bigger and bigger inside his little nose. He tried to hold it back, but it felt like it would explode out his ears. He sneezed. Miss Hillway stared at him as she slowly shook her head. You never know when to quit, do you, Marvin? Chapter 5. Last one. It did not... Chapter 5, nothing in, nothing out. It did not get any better for Marvin, no matter what he did or what he said or did. Miss Hillway took it the wrong way. On Friday, she called him a hooligan.
I don't even know what a hooligan is,
Marvin said after school.
Don't worry about it,
said Stuart.
Mrs. North won't get mad at you. You're taking care of her dog. You can do anything,
said Nick.
You're so lucky. You're the luckiest kid in the world.
Marvin shrugged. That was another problem. He wasn't doing such a good job of taking care of Mrs. North's dog. Waldo hadn't eaten anything since Mrs. North left. His bowl was still full of the same old dog food. He unlocked his bicycle.
Can I come with you to Mrs. North's house?
Asked Stuart. Marvin looked at Stuart, then at Nick. Mrs. North didn't exactly say he couldn't bring his friends over.
Sorry,
he said.
Why not?
Asked Stuart.
I'm not going to wreck anything.
Marvin wasn't worried about Stuart, but if he said yes to Stuart, then Nick would want to come too.
Mrs. North says she doesn't want anyone else in her house.
He lied.
I just want to sit in her chair,
said Nick.
She won't find out,
said Stuart.
I just want to turn her lights on and up,
said Nick.
Sorry,
said Marvin.
It's her rule, not mine.
He got on his bike.
I'll see you later, okay?
His friends stared at him. He rode off. He felt bad lying to his two best friends, but he just didn't want to take any chances. He glanced back. Nick and Stuart were on their bikes, a half a block behind him. He turned a corner and stopped. Nick and Stuart came around the corner, then stopped when they saw him.
You can't come to her house,
said Marvin.
We're just riding our bikes,
Stuart said.
Mrs. North doesn't own the street,
said Nick.
Well, quit following me. We're not following you,
said Nick.
He thinks we're following him. Just a coincidence,
Stuart explained. Marvin got back on his bike. Stuart and Nick followed. He stopped in front of Mrs. North's house. Stuart and Nick stopped too.
Just taking a rest,
said Stuart. He stretched his arms and yawned. Marvin went into his teacher's house and locked the door behind him. Waldo's bowl was still full.
Oh, Waldo,
said Marvin, petting him. Waldo's tail swept the floor.
You really have to eat,
he told the old dog. Waldo whined and nuzzled Marvin. Marvin petted him.
Nick and Stuart are so immature,
he said.
You're lucky I'm taking care of you and not them.
He hooked on the leash, grabbed the pooper scooper, and led Waldo outside.
That's the ugliest dog I've ever seen,
laughed Nick.
It looks like a walrus,
said Stuart.
Come on, Waldo,
said Marvin.
Waldo!
Nick and Stuart said together.
Where's Waldo?
said Nick. They laughed again. Marvin tugged on the leash, but Waldo didn't seem to want to take a walk. He just took 2 steps and sat down. He looked back at the house. Nick and Stuart laughed again.
Let's go, Waldo,
said Marvin, tugging on the leash. Waldo slowly got up, took a few more steps, then sat down again.
He really knows how to walk a dog,
said Stuart.
No wonder Mrs. North chose him. And what would you do different?
Asked Marvin.
Did you hear something?
Stuart asked.
No, I didn't hear anything,
said Nick.
I thought I heard someone talking to me,
said Stuart.
It must have been the wind.
Instead of going around the block, Marvin only managed to get to the corner and back. At least he didn't have to use the pooper scooper in front of Nick and Stuart. But Waldo hadn't eaten in 2 days, and if nothing goes in, nothing comes out. He put Waldo back in the house.
I'll be out in a second,
he told his friends.
Then we can do something, okay?
He put the leash and pooper scooper away. Waldo lay on the floor, watching him with sad eyes.
See you later, Waldo,
said Marvin.
Eat something.
He checked to make sure he still had the key, then went outside, locking the door behind him. Nick and Stuart were gone. Dun, dun, dun. To be continued.